Okay, All Out 2022. Whoa, that was a very good pay-per-view. That's got to be the best pay-per-view this year, I think, other than maybe Forbidden Door. But in terms of an AEW exclusive pay-per-view, that has to be the best one of the year so far. I think Full Gear's got a pretty decent bar to clear because that was very good. In terms of the biggest moment of the night, it was clearly at the beginning of the night when the Joker in the Battle Royal turned out to be a masked figure. Now, the song that was playing for MJF was a Rolling Stone song, which is really impressive that Tony Khan can get the rights to a song like that. But also the name of the song is Sympathy for the Devil. So just the messages that MJF is sending with that as the theme song that he brought in. The mask he was wearing, I'm not sure what exactly that means. Maybe you guys know, you can let me know in the comment section below. But I am literally fresh off of watching it as of like 10 minutes ago. So it ended up that Stokely actually came out and grabbed the poker chip, which means all this recruiting that Stokely's been doing has actually been recruiting for potentially MJF's new stable. And it is a really good looking stable in my books. I really like the makeup of it. None of these guys are actually really well established. You got a lot of names that want to take that next step. So they are lining up with MJF. They are aligning themselves with one of, if not the strongest figures in AEW. And I didn't think that it would be the case, and it definitely isn't, but MJF is still so over with the AEW crowd, specifically for what happened after his match against Wardlow with that, I guess you can call it a pipe bomb. I don't think it was a pipe bomb because I think it was scripted. I think it was a well-rehearsed, planned promo, but you can call it a pipe bomb if you want. But after that promo, MJF has been so over, or just before then probably, and a lot of what him and Punk are going to do now moving forward is going to be just amazing. You can tell that this feud is going to be a contender, a very strong contender for the best feud of the year in AEW. I'd be surprised if it wasn't MJF versus CM Punk. It seems that with MJF coming out at the end of the show that he will be the next challenger for CM Punk. There's going to be absolutely no break here for CM Punk, who is now a two-time AEW World Heavyweight Champion. And I think it was probably the biggest decision in giving Punk the title back was the fact that MJF was ready to come back. I'm not sure what the reasoning for having Moxley defeat Punk to have Punk come back and beat him was. I'm not sure what that was about, whether it was a bit of a reward for Jon Moxley for turning his career around, turning his life around this year and carrying that interim title while Punk was out. I don't know if it was a little bit of a reward to maybe say, look, you're a two-time champion now. You know, the run was legitimate. I don't know if it was a way to legitimize that interim run, or they wanted to just hot potato it just to keep people guessing and get viewership up. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but now Jon Moxley and CM Punk are two-time World Heavyweight Champions. And look, I've got to say, with CM Punk, I don't think he should defend it against MJF. I think he should drop it, which would mean why he has no successful defenses as a world champion with two title reigns. It seems a little bit strange as to where the direction is, but I'm more than convinced that MJF's time to be world heavyweight champion of this company is right now, like sooner rather than later. MJF's climb to the top of the mountain is not a recent development. I mean, it's not just coming out of nowhere. He's had a couple of cracks at the world title, and if he doesn't win the world title, I just don't see what else you can do with MJF. There's nothing else that would satisfy MJF's role in the company. The character himself is completely above everything else in the company. He wouldn't bother with the TNT title. He wouldn't bother with the Owen Hart Cup. He wouldn't bother with the All Atlantic Championship. For MJF right now, the character that he's portraying, and perhaps the way he feels in real life, is that he is the top talent of AEW. That he is a sought after professional wrestler. Like, there's more demand for MJF than there is supply. There are more companies that want him than he can work for. So right now, I'm sure that in MJF's mind, he is world champion material. He's definitely ready. There's nothing else that MJF can do really to develop. I think MJF is essentially all he needs to be a world champion. So for me, it's the right time to fire that bullet. I think it's time to make MJF world champion. I don't know if it'll go that smoothly. And again, it's for the aforementioned reason that CM Punk still wouldn't have a successful title defense if he was to lose to MJF. And whatever your opinion is on CM Punk, I don't know how strong of a message that sends if Tony Khan books him as a two-time champion with no title defenses. So I don't know what is going to happen with this feud. It could go either way. I just feel like, and maybe it's because MJF has just returned, but I just feel like you have to have him as your AEW World Champion. It was so good to have him back. I was kind of surprised and kind of not surprised that he got the reaction that he did. I wouldn't have been surprised if it wasn't in Chicago. That's the part that sort of got me a little bit. I was surprised that he got that reaction in Chicago. But I guess we haven't seen MJF for so long. When he cut that promo, he was actually speaking a lot of the truths that fans were feeling at the time with the ex-WWE guys and stuff like that. I've already, said my opinion on that, said my piece on that. I don't necessarily agree with everything that MJF was saying, but he tugged on a lot of heartstrings. I mean, he said a lot of things that people were feeling, and it is very reminiscent of CM Punk versus John Cena. But in this situation, CM Punk is John Cena and MJF is CM Punk, and there's going to be parallels as it was when their feud originally started. And that's the thing, these two have history. It's not like it's coming out of nowhere and MJF has just decided to go after Punk because he's the world champion. It's more than that. Yes, he's the world champion. Yes, that's what MJF wants, but the fact that it's CM Punk is a little bit extra. So this feud's going to be amazing, obviously, but realistically speaking, what was CM Punk's job and role as world champion here in AEW? Yes, it was probably to have great matches with the likes of Jon Moxley or even a Bryan Danielson. I'm sure that was in the cards, but who was CM Punk meant to drop that title to, especially if he didn't get injured? Who was the end goal for CM Punk? And the story was MJF. I talked about the first four champions a while ago. I think it was during my Hangman video where I discussed that realistically speaking, the whole first chapter of AEW's existence was to get Hangman the world title. And I think somebody in the comment section in that video actually said that, well, what would chapter 2 be? And they suggested that it would be crowning Wardlow as the AEW champion. And in many regards, I do feel like that is potentially the setup here. I mean, very long term here. That's probably where this is going when you think about it. I mean, CM Punk to drop it to MJF and MJF in 9 months or longer to drop it to Wardlow makes a lot of sense. And that could be the next AEW homegrown guy, which MJF is as well, but Wardlow more so, to take that mantle. And that would be the next sort of long-term arc within the larger frame story of AEW. AEW operates on many levels. There's the week-to-week booking, there's mid-term booking, and then there's really long-term booking. And Hangman Adam Page with Kenny Omega was clearly an example of that. That was a couple of years in the making. And you could argue that MJF and Wardlow is a very similar story. So when you think about what CM Punk's role was towards the end of chapter 2, let's call it, his role was clearly to elevate MJF into a household name, which he's done through the mic work that those two did together, to get him over and established and believable as a world champion, which I think he's going to do, in order to, yes, obviously elevate MJF to another level, but in turn, not only elevate MJF, but in the future, elevate Wardlow and sort of put a ribbon on MJF and Wardlow's story. So there's a lot of layers to what the long-term outcome will be for CM Punk and MJF's match. That's why I think you need to give MJF the belt. That's why I think it should happen. Whether it happens or not, I'm not sure. And if it doesn't happen, I feel like we've deviated away from what that second stanza or the second act was meant to be in AEW. And I just don't think that will work. I think if we redirect it now, it's just not going to work. Maybe Punk missed out on a lot of what he wanted to do as world champion in the middle of it, but at the end, the same thing has to happen. And at the end, I think it was always planned, and I think it's still planned, and it's for MJF to defeat CM Punk. So I think that should happen. There is a lot to touch on, to be fair, like a lot happened in this pay-per-view. Obviously, this video is specifically about MJF and his return to the company, but I'll quickly touch on a few points. I think the Acclaimed should have won the tag team championships. I mean, that was very clear to me. I know that there seems to be a story that they want to tell with Keith Lee and Swerve, but I just feel like today was the day to take the tag titles off them. I don't think they've had a great run as tag champions. There's nothing really memorable that they've done, and the Acclaimed is so on point at the moment. He could have really hit two birds with one stone, and he could have gotten Swerve and Keith Lee into their potential program that they will have with potentially Swerve turning on Keith Lee, but also B, and almost more importantly, I think give the Acclaimed the tag titles. I mean, what a step that would be in their direction and their progression as a tag team, an AEW original talent. I mean, when people talk about AEW and their homegrown talent, there is one that Tony Khan can boast about if he made them the tag team champions. They're so over at the moment, and I just think the timing was right. So I don't really agree with that decision, but I do agree with two of the pretty big decisions that Tony Khan ended up making tonight, and that was Christian Cage to squash Jungle Boy after some interference with Luchasaurus, and also Powerhouse Hobbs to defeat Ricky Starks in a convincing manner. I think both of those decisions were actually correct. I like the fact that they were squash matches. It wasn't really long, grueling matches for either one of them, and it leaves a little bit left on the table for both. So obviously Jungle Boy is going to be coming back at Christian. That is nowhere near over, but I'm very glad that Christian got his win, and Ricky Starks, I think the same situation. We're probably going to see both of these these head-to-head matches go to 1 win each. Whether or not they do a third match for Christian and Jungle Boy, I'm not entirely sure, because I think if Jungle Boy gets his win back in like a no DQ match or something like that, or a street fight, something that really settles the feud, I think that can be done with. Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs is not as clear though. I think Ricky Starks, if he gets the win back, deserves a third match in the trilogy between him and Powerhouse Hobbs, and that could end up being a really, really good trilogy, and it could actually culminate in a finale at Full Gear. So sort of leading into that, you could do another one at Grand Slam and then going into Full Gear or something like that. But Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs is not over yet, I don't think, and I would love to see those two go at it again. Listen, I just finished watching All Out like 20 minutes ago, so I'm rambling here. Don't get me wrong, these are not constructed thoughts. This is not a script. This is just my raw thoughts on what happened tonight, and AEW is fully loaded now. I mean, the roster is basically back. You're essentially only missing Adam Cole right now that I could think of. There's no more excuses now. It's a fully strengthened roster. Let's just hope that Tony Khan can utilize the most of it. And in my opinion, utilizing your roster right now is by having MJF as your AEW World Champion. What are your guys' thoughts? Let me know down below. Leave a like if you did enjoy it, just to help it get around in the algorithm so new people can watch it. I do appreciate everybody that leaves a like and is down in the comments below. So yeah, peace out. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you're happy. Hope you're healthy. Stay stunning.